Hi guys. This is one of my favorite dinners right here. It's a Sloppy Joe, and this happens to be some homemade coleslaw because I love coleslaw, and the two together is really, really good. Now, a lot of people, most people, have it like a hamburger with a bun on top. I like mine open face like this so I can eat it with a fork. So let's go ahead and try this thing. I toasted the bun underneath. I like a little of each, some coleslaw and some Sloppy Joe in a single bite. You get the hot and the cold and all the flavors work, so let's see. That is so good. The Sloppy Joe is perfectly seasoned. There's enough salt and pepper. It's one of those real magical meals that's easy and inexpensive and quick and so delicious. So let me show you how to make it. To make our Sloppy Joe recipe, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a small onion or a half of a large onion. You're going to need half of a bell pepper. This is a half bell pepper and it can be any color. Some fresh garlic cloves, some Worcestershire sauce, some basic yellow mustard, brown sugar, a 15-ounce can of tomato sauce. I happen to be using a no salt added one, but that's because that's just what I have. You're also going to need 1 pound of beef. It can be beef, or you could use ground turkey or ground pork or an impossible meat, a vegetarian meat, your choice. 1 pound of that. And pepper, salt, also some buns. I happen to have some whole wheat hamburger buns here. As for equipment, just the basics plus a cutting board, knife, and a nice big skillet. And that's about it. And let me show you what the first step is. Okay, for the vegetables, I fairly finely diced the onion and fairly finely diced the bell peppers, and the garlic is in there somewhere too, and the garlic was minced real small. So I put the 3 vegetables into a bag that I have labeled, and for school purposes, we will be using this on day 2. Okay, I'll come back and we'll make the sauce. Okay, for the sauce, just a small bowl. First thing I'm going to put in is my can of tomato sauce. And I didn't mention it when I went over the ingredients, but there's also 1/4 cup of water. Let me show you a little trick for the water. I've got it right here, 1/4 cup of water. And to get all the last little dribs and drabs of the tomato sauce, pour the water in there first. Give it a swish around, then pour it in there. That way it empties every last little bit of the tomato sauce out of there. I also have a teaspoon of the mustard. In it goes. You can get it off in there. Okay, teaspoon of mustard, a tablespoon of brown sugar, and that's going to be solid like that, so I'm going to break it up in there. Okay. Now I also need a tablespoon of the Worcestershire sauce. Now, I'm always thinking, how can I wash the least amount of dishes? So first I measured my tablespoon of brown sugar, which is dry, in my 1 tablespoon measuring spoon. It's gone. Now I'm going to do the Worcestershire sauce. So I only have to dirty 1 tablespoon. There's the Worcestershire sauce. And if you didn't have Worcestershire sauce at home and you wanted to make this, you could successfully substitute soy sauce for it. They kind of do a lot of the same things. So all I'm going to do with the sauce is I'm going to stir it up. Just give it a good stir. And then this too is going to go into a bag that I'm going to label, kind of like I did with the vegetables. This goes into a bag too, and we're going to get it ready for tomorrow, or Well, for you guys, it's gonna be the next day tomorrow. Okay, and next thing I'm gonna do is start cooking. Okay, so right over here, I have my skillet on medium heat. In your lab, it's probably 4, setting 4 would be good. So the meat is down here, and I'm gonna start breaking it up with a spatula. This is better than a wooden spoon because it has a lot of edge here. A wooden spoon doesn't have very much edge. So we're just gonna start breaking this up. You wanna get the pieces of meat really small, as small as you can as it cooks. And as it cooks, it goes, you can see right here, it goes from pink to brown. And we wanna cook this until a lot of the pink is gone. You don't have to worry about all of the pink being gone because we're gonna add the vegetables to it, and that's gonna give it some more time to cook too. Keep turning it over so that the brown can be on top. Okay, so I'm gonna continue to cook this on medium heat, breaking it up with a spatula like this until we got a lot of the pink, but not quite all of the pink gone, and we'll come back when that happens. Okay, so as you can see, I've been breaking up the beef into small pieces, and you still see some pink there, but there's a lot of brown, still some pink. What happens next? The bag of vegetables gets put in like that. In go the vegetables. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna continue to cook everything. You wanna cook this for a good 5 more minutes, because you want those vegetables, the peppers, the onion, the garlic, you want them to get soft. And in order to do that, you have to cook them. Otherwise, your Sloppy Joe mix will be full of raw veggies, and that you don't want. You can turn the heat up a little bit now. I'm gonna do that for mine, just to give it a little bit of a head start. And by the time the vegetables have cooked in about 5 minutes, the beef will be all pink, because you want the beef to be all pink before you eat it so that it's safe to eat. Okay, we'll come back after about 5 minutes. So it's been about 5 minutes, and my son told me that in the previous segment I said you want to make sure that the meat is all pink before you eat it. I meant to say you want to make sure that the meat is all brown before you eat it. And if you look here, it is. The vegetables have been cooked. The meat is brown. It's in nice small pieces. Now, depending on the kind of beef that you use or the kind of meat that you use, you might have no grease left over. You might have a lot of grease left over. It's looking like, for me, see, as I tilt this, you can see the grease is kind of moving down there. If you don't want to keep that grease, first of all, you can keep it if you want to. It'll give it a nice kind of savoriness and unctuousness. But I'm going to take it out. And so what I've done is I've turned off the heat. That's real important to turn the heat off when you do this. I'm holding the handle. I'm tilting the pan. Now I have some paper towels, dry paper towels. And I'm going to put that in there to soak up the grease. You can soak it all up. You can soak some of it up. It's really kind of up to you. I'm probably going to leave a little bit behind for flavor. But again, at school you might end up with more grease or less grease than I've got here. Don't know. Okay, and that's going to go into the trash. Okay, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so I've turned the heat back on after getting some of that grease off. In goes the sauce mixture right there. I want to get it all out of there, so I'm going to use my rubber spatula to get it all out of the bowl. Okay, so I'm back to this spatula. So we're going to mix it in, and we're going to let this simmer. Okay, simmer means a little boil. Not crazy bubbles, but a little boil. But my heat's still on medium because we want to get this thing done within the period so you have time to eat. As you can see here, there's a lot of runniness here. It's pretty liquidy. So this would make a very sloppy Joe. But if you let it cook for 5 or 10 minutes, you'll get some of that moisture out. It'll evaporate out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let this evaporate, let this simmer for a bit to evaporate some of that moisture out so we have a sloppy Joe, but not like a complete total mess Joe. Okay, so we'll come back when it has simmered for a bit, and then we will taste it to see if it will need salt and pepper. It's just a question of how much, and the only way to know how much seasoning you need is to taste it and not stop seasoning it until you're satisfied with it. So we will come back. Okay, you can see we got the simmering here, the little bubbles, see all that steam, that's good. The mixture is getting thicker now. It's less liquidy than it was about 10 minutes ago. That's looking good. So what I've done is I have taken out a spoonful and I've let it cool off because it's gonna be hot, guys. It's gonna be hot. And I'm gonna taste it and I'm gonna see what it needs in terms of seasoning, like salt and pepper. Okay. For sure needs salt and pepper because it tastes bland. It doesn't really taste like anything. So, hold on one sec. I'm gonna grab there's some pepper that I ground out from the pepper mill and so half a teaspoon of salt. So let's put that in there and we'll give it a mix. Always food is done, especially something like this, when you decide it's done. And if it just doesn't thrill you, it probably needs more salt. Okay, so we've added that in there, mix it around, mix it around. You can see how thick it's gotten. Okay, so I'm gonna try another spoonful here. Very, very hot. Now, what am I gonna do? If I taste it and it still needs something, you're gonna add a little bit more salt, not a lot more salt, maybe a quarter teaspoon more, maybe a few more shakes of pepper, see what you get. Just see what happens. And just keep doing that gradually until it's perfect just the way you want it. So let's try it now. Oh yeah. Much better, much better. In fact, really good. So, if you wanted to add some Tapatio, a few shakes of Tapatio or Cholula or any other kind of hot sauce that you want, you could at this point give a little spice. But this beautiful mixture is done. That's gonna make 4 sloppy joes. And if you didn't want to eat it now, you know what you could do, or if you had leftover, I'm gonna turn it off. You can put it in a freezer-safe baggie or a freezer-safe container, put it in the freezer, and now you've got a meal for some other time. That's a great idea for when you don't want to cook but you want a good meal. You have this in the freezer, that's like money in the bank. All right, so I hope you try this at home. It's easy, it's not expensive, and it's really, really good.